Is Enzo Fernandez about to leave Stamford Bridge? The truth behind the biggest transfer saga of the summer, Chelsea fans. Are you ready for the biggest transfer story of the summer? 1 minute, Enzo Fernandez looks like the heartbeat of our midfield, the man who will lead us into a new era under Xabi Alonso. The next minute, his name is all over the news linked with a shock move to Manchester City. So what is really going on? Is Enzo staying? Is he going? And why does this whole saga feel like it is not finished yet? Let us break it all down, piece by piece, so you know exactly where things stand right now. A summer of drama. This has been one of the wildest transfer stories of the window. Enzo Fernandez, our vice-captain, our midfield general, the man who lifted the World Cup with Argentina, has spent the entire summer at the centre of a tug-of-war between Chelsea and Manchester City. On one side you have Chelsea, who want to build their new project around him. On the other side you have Manchester City, who see him as the perfect man to fix their midfield after losing a huge player. And in the middle, you have Enzo himself, the man everyone is fighting over. Doesn't that sound like exactly the kind of drama that makes football so exciting? Let's get into the details. The deadline that came and went here is where things get really interesting. Chelsea did not just sit back and wait quietly. The club set a clear deadline for Manchester City. Chelsea told City that if they wanted Enzo Fernandez, they had until 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, August 14th, to come forward with a formal bid worth £120 million. That is a massive number, and it was not just a random figure. Chelsea picked that price because they believed it reflected exactly how important Enzo is to this team. So what happened when the clock struck 5 o'clock on that Friday? Nothing. Manchester City did not send in a formal bid. They missed the deadline completely. What do you think that tells us about how serious City really were at that point? Were they testing Chelsea's patience? Were they hoping to force the price down by waiting? Or were they simply not ready to move that fast? Because City missed the deadline, Chelsea did exactly what they said they would do. The club officially pulled those verbal terms off the table. In simple words, that £120 million price is no longer available. Chelsea also made their position clear to everyone watching. Enzo Fernandez is not for sale, not at that price. Not on City's timeline. Can you imagine being a Manchester City fan watching your club miss a deadline like that on one of the most wanted players in Europe? Chelsea raises the price. Now here comes the twist that will make Chelsea fans smile. Since City missed their chance, Chelsea did not just move on quietly. Instead, they raised the price. According to reports from The Telegraph, Chelsea has increased their demands for Enzo Fernandez. If Manchester City still want him now, they are going to have to pay a lot more than the original £120 million that was on the table before the deadline passed. Think about that for a second. Chelsea basically said, you had your chance, you missed it, now it is going to cost you even more. Isn't that exactly the kind of power move Chelsea fans want to see from their club? For years, some fans felt Chelsea let players walk away too easily or sold too cheaply. This time, the club is standing firm and making City pay a premium for waiting around. This new higher price also sends a message across the whole football world. It tells every other club thinking about testing Chelsea for one of their star players that Chelsea will not be pushed around this summer. City's valuation conflict. But here is where the story gets complicated. While Chelsea has raised the price, reports coming through The Athletic suggest that Manchester City's hierarchy does not want to pay £120 million or anything higher than that. So now we have a real standoff. Chelsea wants more money. City does not want to spend that much. Neither side seems ready to give in. What happens when two clubs disagree this much on a price? Sometimes the deal collapses completely and the player stays where he is. Sometimes one side eventually blinks and agrees to move. And sometimes the whole thing drags on until the very last hours of the transfer window before anyone knows the real answer. Which one do you think will happen here? Do you believe Chelsea will hold firm all the way to deadline day? Or do you think City's need for a midfielder will force them to open their wallet wider than they want to? Manchester City's strategic push continues. Even though City missed the deadline, and even though their board does not want to pay Chelsea's new asking price, that does not mean they have walked away. Not even close. According to Sky Sports, Manchester City remain heavily interested in Enzo Fernandez despite missing that deadline. This tells us something important. City are not just casually browsing the market. They see Enzo as a genuine target, someone they still want badly enough to keep pushing even after things did not go smoothly. Why would City still be this determined? Let's look at two big reasons behind their push. The Rodri factor. The first reason is what is happening with Rodri. City are losing one of the most important midfielders in world football, with Rodri set to complete a transfer to Barcelona worth around £65.3 million. Think about what that means for Manchester City. Rodri has been the anchor of their midfield for years. Losing a player like that leaves a massive hole right in the centre of the pitch. City cannot simply ignore that gap. They need someone who can come in and take control of games the way Rodri used to. This is exactly why their urgency around Enzo Fernandez has grown so much stronger. It is not just about wanting a good player anymore. It is about replacing a departing superstar with someone who can do a similar job. Doesn't it make sense now why City are still fighting for Enzo even after missing their deadline? When you lose a player as important as Rodri, you cannot afford to just give up on your replacement plan. Moresca's personal push. The second big reason behind City's continued interest is their new manager, Enzo Moresca. If that name sounds familiar to Chelsea fans, it should. Moresca managed at Stamford Bridge before, and during that time, he worked closely with Enzo Fernandez. Moresca knows exactly what Fernandez can bring to a team. He has seen his quality up close in training and in matches. That kind of personal knowledge matters a lot in football. Managers often push hardest for players they have already worked with because they know precisely how that player fits their style. Reports suggest Moresca is pushing the Manchester City board to speed things up. He wants Fernandez to become the centrepiece of his new midfield project at City. Not just a squad player, the centrepiece. When a manager personally lobbies his own board for a specific player, that usually means he believes deeply in what that player can do for the team. Do you think Moresca's push could be the thing that finally convinces City's hierarchy to spend more money? Active contact behind the scenes. Here is something that will really grab your attention. Even though the club-to-club talks between Chelsea and Manchester City are currently stuck because of the price disagreement, that does not mean everything has gone quiet. City are reportedly staying in daily contact with Enzo Fernandez's representatives. Every single day, someone from City's side is talking with people close to the player. That is not something clubs do for a target they are ready to give up on. And here comes the part that will make some fans nervous and others excited. Reports suggest that Fernandez himself is open to the move. He is not shutting the door on the idea of playing for Manchester City. But before anyone panics or celebrates too early, it is important to understand what this really means. Him being open to a move does not mean he has decided to leave. It simply means the door is not closed. The actual transfer still depends completely on whether City is willing to raise their offer high enough to meet Chelsea's new asking price. In other words, the ball is really in Manchester City's court. If they compromise and pay what Chelsea wants, this story could move very quickly. If they refuse, this could all fade away just like so many transfer sagas do. How does it feel knowing that Enzo himself has not ruled out the move? Does that change how you see this situation? Xabi Alonso wants him to stay. Now let's talk about the other side of this story, because this is where Chelsea fans can find real reassurance. New Chelsea manager Xabi Alonso has been very clear and very public about how he feels regarding Enzo Fernandez. Alonso has stated that he is highly satisfied with Fernandez's attitude. Think about what that really means. This is not some outside pundit guessing about a player's mindset. This is the man in charge of the team, working with Fernandez every single day in training, giving his honest opinion. Alonso wants Fernandez to stay. He sees him as a key part of his plans going forward. When a brand new manager, someone building his own vision for the club, specifically says he wants to keep a certain player, that carries a lot of weight. Isn't it a good sign for Chelsea fans that the manager himself is fighting to keep our vice-captain rather than pushing him out the door? This also tells us something about Fernandez's behaviour throughout this entire saga. If his attitude in training and around the squad was a problem, do you really think Alonso would be praising him this much? The fact that the manager is happy with how Enzo has carried himself suggests the player has stayed professional despite all the transfer noise swirling around him. Chelsea's contingency plan. But smart clubs do not just hope for the best, they prepare for every outcome, and Chelsea is doing exactly that. Even while Alonso publicly backs Fernandez to stay, the club is quietly preparing for the possibility that City could still come back with a massive late bid before the window closes. Because of this, Chelsea has already identified a primary replacement target in case Fernandez does depart. That target is Alex Scott, the talented midfielder currently at Bournemouth. Think about how much this tells us about the level of planning happening behind the scenes at Chelsea right now. The club is not just crossing their fingers and hoping City goes away. They are actively scouting alternatives, building a plan B, and making sure that if Enzo does leave, they are not left scrambling at the last minute. This is smart football management. You never want to be caught with no answer if your best player suddenly leaves in the final days of the window. By identifying Alex Scott early, Chelsea protects themselves no matter what happens with Enzo. What do you think of Alex Scott as a potential option if things go a different direction? Could a young, talented midfielder like him step into a huge role at a club like Chelsea, putting it all together? So where does all of this leave us? Let's recap the full picture one more time so everything is crystal clear. Chelsea set a strict deadline of 5 p.m. on August 14th for Manchester City to submit a formal bid worth £120 million. City missed that deadline entirely. Because of that missed deadline, Chelsea pulled the original terms off the table and declared Fernandez not for sale at that price. Chelsea then raised their asking price even higher, according to the Telegraph, meaning City will now have to pay significantly more than £120 million if they still want their man. Manchester City's own hierarchy, according to reports through The Athletic, does not want to pay £120 million or more, creating a genuine standoff between the two clubs. Despite this, City remain heavily interested, according to Sky Sports. Their urgency has grown because of Rodri's departure to Barcelona for £65.3 million, leaving a massive gap in their midfield. Manager Enzo Moresca, who knows Fernandez well from their time together at Chelsea, is reportedly pushing his own board to speed up negotiations. Behind the scenes, City are staying in daily contact with Fernandez's representatives, and reports suggest the player himself is open to the move, though everything still depends on whether City raises their bid. Meanwhile at Chelsea, Xabi Alonzo has publicly said he is happy with Fernandez's attitude and wants him to stay. At the same time, the club is preparing a contingency plan just in case, with Bournemouth's Alex Scott identified as their primary replacement target should Fernandez leave. That is a lot of moving parts, isn't it? This is exactly why this transfer saga has kept fans talking all summer long. What this means for Chelsea fans. So what should Chelsea fans actually feel about all of this? Should you be worried? Should you be confident? Honestly, the answer is somewhere in between, and that is exactly what makes this story so gripping. On one hand, everything from Chelsea's side points toward wanting to keep him. The manager wants him to stay. The club raised the price rather than lowering it to make a sale easier. Those are not the actions of a club trying to push a player out the door. On the other hand, the fact that talks between agents and City continue daily, and the fact that Fernandez himself has not closed the door on a move, means this story is not finished yet. Anything can still happen before the transfer window shuts. Football fans know this feeling all too well. You want to believe your favourite player is staying, but you also know that money and ambition can change things quickly in this sport. The next question is simple. Will Manchester City blink and pay what Chelsea wants? Or will this entire saga fade away with Fernandez staying put and proving his commitment to the Blues? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. However this ends, it will be one of the biggest storylines of the entire transfer window. What do you think happens next? Do you believe Enzo Fernandez finishes this season in a Chelsea shirt? Or do you think Manchester City finds a way to get their man before the window closes? Drop your thoughts because this saga is far from over and every single Chelsea fan has an opinion on where it goes from here. Stay with us here at Lana Chelsea Analysis because as soon as there is a new update on Enzo Fernandez, whether it is a fresh bid from Manchester City, a firm decision from the player, or another statement from Xabi Alonso, we will bring it straight to you. This transfer saga is one of the biggest stories of the summer and you do not want to miss a single twist. Until next time, keep the faith, Chelsea family. Up the Blues.